Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. It is Monday, February 26th, and we are live from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios right here in Lubbock, Texas, and on 98.7 Walk by Faith Radio and 1420 AM Lubbock Christian Nation. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I absolutely did. I had a fantastic weekend. I got to go to Ruidoso, New Mexico, spent some time with my good friend Joe Fraley up there at Alpha and Omega Chiropractic. Joe teaches seminars, and he's one of the smartest dudes I know. Every time I go see him, I get a whole notebook full of stuff, and so we got some cool stuff for you tonight. We're gonna talk about and get into that. It's always great. Joe was on the show with us early. We need to get him back on the show. He's just so busy, and I'm busy, but I'm going to try to get him on the show. And that reminds me, tomorrow night, we've got Chaylee Alsafar, who's a chiropractic student. She was an outstanding graduate of Texas Tech University. She came and worked, did an internship here in our office, and she has decided she'd gone to chiropractic school. So she's a student at Parker College of Chiropractic in Dallas, where I went to chiropractic school, and she's going to be joining us tomorrow night on the show, and she's going to be telling us just kind of what it's like at Parker College, what's new in chiropractic, what's going on at the school, and just kind of a little bit about her journey. She's an outstanding person. As of right now, our plan is to get her on board in our team, and she's going to join our program in a Flower Mound office here in the next couple of years when she gets out of school. So if you guys really want to have a fun show tomorrow night, then you can come listen to Chaylee talk about what's going on in chiropractic school. You know, it's always cool. One of the cool things that is when you keep yourself involved in the school and you keep yourself around new docs, is you're always on the cutting edge of what's going on. You're getting the new stuff. You've already had the old stuff, and so it's always nice to have, keep up with what's going on out there. Keep up with the new science, with the new techniques, with the new things that are happening, and so I've been very fortunate to have 13 different doctors of chiropractic that have worked in my office while I've been in practice. So for the majority of the time that I've been in practice, I've been working with someone in some form or fashion. These last couple of years, we've done it a little bit different. Our model's changed. I've been just as close to MJ and Katie Lewis in Roswell and Dr. Fraley in Ruidoso, but we're not in the same office. We just share the same vision about taking care of people. So that kind of keeps us young. But Chaylee's gonna kind of keep us. She's gonna give us an update tomorrow night about what's going on right off the what's hot right off the press. So I'm looking forward to talking to her. Every time I go up there, I get to spend time with Dr. Fraley, and I get to see what's going on. So the weekend before, I got to go to the DFW area, Arlington, and go to Globe Life Field and watch the Red Raiders play. And that's just such an eye-opening experience when you get to go see that. When you don't live in the Metroplex and you actually get to go see the vast vision that people have, it's always pretty inspiring to me to get to do that. And then if you get to go to a town, I don't even know. I think the population of Ruidoso is somewhere around 12,000. Let me look that up. No, it's not even 12, 7,000. And then 2,000 in Ruidoso Downs. So, that's 9, 10. So there's 10, 11,000 people, somewhere around that is the population over there. And Dr. Fraley gets patients from all over the place. He gets people that travel from, I know the last one was someone who come from Austin, but he gets people from El Paso and Albuquerque and all kinds of different places, because when you're on fire with what you're doing and you're studying your butt off and you're trying to do the best that you can, your tail off, excuse me. If you're trying to do all those sort of things and you're trying to make a difference in people's lives, then the word gets around. And that's kind of what I really enjoy, getting the opportunity to spend some time with him. And I thought the Take Health to Church was a different model, and I want to get to it tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, but at the second half of the show, I want to touch on some of that, because it was a transition night at or transition day yesterday at Hillside Church, because the head pastor, Tommy Pollitt, stepped down as the head pastor, and there's a new pastor, that Jonathan Mass. He's has been there for a long time. He's a member of the church. He's basically been the co-head pastor anyway, and so they just basically did a transition sermon last night. They got out of the greener pastures and got into a transition sermon. And so I'm not going to go over that. It's not as in depth and with health, but I thought it was really cool about, there were some points of it that I thought were really cool. And I think it would be worth going over in the second half of the show. So we are going to take health to church tonight. We're just going to do it in the second half of the show. But this first half of the show, I wanted to go through some of these slides that Dr. Fraley presented this weekend, because some of them are really eye-opening, and I want to share with you some of the things that I learned. You know, this is called Life for a reason, and I want to share with you, when I go to a seminar, what is it like? What do we do? What do we talk about while we're there? What did I do all day long on Saturday? And so I just wanted to share some of these things with you. So the first thing is, Dr. Fraley's gracious enough to give us a notebook. And this notebook is full of these slides. He's got 6 to a page, and it's front and back. And I think he had somewhere like 800 slides that he went through this weekend. He does an outstanding job of preparing when he's getting ready to do a seminar. So there's a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of slides in here, but some of these slides, I don't know that you get to know them. I don't know that you learn these things. If you're not learning it from us, I don't know where you would actually learn it. I don't know where you would get this information that you might want. And you know, one of the things that Dr. Fraley always does is he starts off and just kind of gives you a little bit of frame of reference of what we as health and wellness practitioners, what we deal with on a daily basis, what we're fighting out there. And this is from December 5th, 2023, America's Health Ranking 2023 Annual Report, Chronic Conditions on the Rise. Just released, the America's Health Ranking 2023 Annual Report shows 8 chronic conditions have reached the highest prevalence in the report's history. And what that means is that these conditions, arthritis, asthma, cancer, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, depression, and diabetes, they have reached the highest levels ever reported in the report's history. Meaning that group of problems is worse than it's ever been in the history of America. Now think about that. Think about what that means to us. Asthma, depression, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease in 2024, according to this report, this is not my stuff. This is coming from the America's Health Ranking 2023 Annual Report. This cardiovascular disease is worse than it's ever been in the history of America. We have more people sick with cardiovascular disease than we've ever had before. And think about how many people are on statin drugs. And we talked about it multiple times on the show, right? And I can't put you on drugs or take you off drugs. That's not within my scope of practice. But what I can tell you is, if you start taking statins and all this stuff, like if you from in 1970 something, where they come out and say that cardiovascular disease is caused from cholesterol, and then they spend all this time trying to prove that that's true, and then they create an entire pharmaceutical industry around it, what you'll end up with is the same thing that we talked about when we talked about blitzed on our show with the Germans, right? And I just want you to know that I don't make this stuff up. It's just factual. It's I'm just reporting it to you because it's what I come to work every single day fighting. I fight it. I fight it from the morning I wake up till the time I go to bed, and I'm in the fight willingly. No one's making me be in the fight. But it's one of those things that it's like, man, the model is broken if you follow that model, right? Chronic diseases in America, the leading cause of death and disability is chronic disease, $3.5 trillion. Here's one from 2023, July 17th. This comes from the British Medical Journal. So, burden of serious harm from diagnostic errors in the U.S. This is from the British Medical Journal, Quality and Safety, July 17th, 2023. So, it's a British Medical Journal. You can take it for its value, right? Across clinical settings, ambulatory clinics, emergency departments, and inpatient, we estimate that nearly 800,000 Americans die or are permanently disabled by diagnostic errors each year, making it the single largest source of serious harm from medical mistakes. Our results suggest that diagnostic errors is probably the single largest source of deaths across all care settings. 371,000 linked to medical error. Although the study estimated total diagnostic errors 2.59 million, this study reflects only errors in patients with dangerous diseases, not all diagnostic errors. So one of the things that we've gotten so accustomed to is we want the doctor to tell us what's wrong with us. We want to go get a diagnosis from the doctor so that we can know what's wrong with us. And as soon as we get the diagnosis about what's wrong with us, then we get the drug that treats the diagnosis that we've been told that we have. And according to the British Medical Journal, 800,000 Americans die or are permanently disabled by diagnostic errors each year. Like that, those diagnoses, that being diagnosed with something is not necessarily what a person should be looking for. It's not the diagnosis that you're looking for. It's the solution to your problem that you're looking for. That's what you want. And otherwise, you kind of taking it in a dangerous. If you're taking a chance right there that you might not realize that you're taking. You might not realize that is a choice that you're making right there. The illusion of evidence-based medicine, and I think I've read this one before. This was in the British Medical Journal, March 16th, 2022. And it says, evidence-based medicine has been corrupted by corporate interest, failed regulations, and commercialization of academia. The advent of evidence-based medicine was a paradigm shift intended to provide a solid scientific foundation for medicine. The validity of paradigm depends on reliable data from clinical trials, most of which are conducted by the pharmaceutical industry and reported in the names of senior academics. The release into the public domain of previously confidential pharmaceutical industry documents has given the medical community value insight into the degree to which drug industry-sponsored clinical trials are misrepresented. Until this misrepresentation is corrected, evidence-based medicine will remain an illusion. That comes from the British Medical Journal, March 16th, 2022, Volume 376, page 702. I believe that is what it is. So you hear that sometimes, right? Well, my doctor's evidence-based. Yeah. It was so cool because one of the doctors that is he's either an MD or a DO, and he's trained. That was in the seminar with us this weekend, and he's had some really extensive training in the military. He's been in infectious disease places. He's been published. He's a teacher. He's a really, really smart dude. And some of the comments that he made, we were talking about acetaminophen, and one of these slides in here gets to acetaminophen, and he was talking about, Lord, man, he's like, ibuprofen will kill your kidneys. He's like, that'll destroy them. And I told him, he said 2 or 3 different things, and I told him, I said, it's really nice to hear you say this stuff, because he's been trained in that model, and it's not a model that we want to necessarily we want to question it every once in a while, right? So which we try to do, and then Joe will get us focused and talk about, hey, look, what we're trying to do is fuel and activation. That's what we want to do for you. We want to make sure that we address your fuel, which is your nutrition and toxicity. We want to make sure that you're getting the nutrients that you need and that you're not getting the toxins that you don't need. And we want to test your autonomic nervous system for fuel delivery. So we want to make sure that you're getting the nutrition, but we also want to make sure that your body is accepting the nutrition. Are you absorbing the nutrition? Is your body functioning with it? And that's why we do the heart rate variability. We do the heart sound recorder. We do the pupillary light reflex. We're doing some of the things in the office and I've got some more things that I've been working on to try to get it, that in the office. We've got some technology coming for the brain. But those are the things. We want fuel and activation. So nutrition and toxicity was the big one for this weekend. Autonomic nervous system is fuel delivery. And then activation, the vestibular system, where you are in space, the proprioception system, movement and body position, and the visual system, where objects are relative to you. And those are 3 areas that Dr. Fraley focuses on when he's talking about his activation. Well, proprioception, that's your adjustment. That's your movement, that's your exercise, that's your feet on the floor, that's the feeling of your body that's feeding your brain. Remember, your brain's receiving 3 trillion bits of information per second, which is a lot. Remember, I don't have to look down right now to know that my feet are on this stool, right? We said this last week or 2. That's proprioception. And so we go back through it, and nutrition was the big one. And here's a Senate document from 1936, Senate Document 264, Farmland Mineral Depletion. From 1936, we have the Senate Document 264, 74th Congress, 2nd Session. It announced that our farm soils are severely depleted of minerals. In 1993, the World Health Organization said that in a report that our soil is now totally barren, 95% depleted of the basic survival nutrients we need. With 4 to 5 crop rotations each year on a single plot of land, intense farming practices have depleted vital nutrients from the soil. What is alarming is that these deficiencies are showing up in our bodies. Now, look, I'm not coming at farmers. That is not what we're talking about right there. I mean, we're not talking trash or throwing stones. We're simply saying that, hey, look, when they go out there and evaluate it, that you say, well, I'm not going to take any of this stuff. I'm not going to take these supplements. Like, I don't need any of that. I'm just going to eat food, and that's all I need. Well, what we study, and when we get together, and what we really work on when we're studying health, we understand that that's not true. You can't get all the nutrients you need from food. The Journal of the American Medical Association published a study warning that people can't get enough vitamins from diet alone, and that supplementation in all adults is recommended if not necessary. This was back in JAMA, Journal of American Medical Association, in 2002. So we're talking over 20 years ago. The Journal of American Medical Association was saying, look, you can't just get all the food you need. Just if you ate a great diet, if you ate an organic diet, you still wouldn't be able to do that. In 2006, the United Nations admitted to a new type of malnutrition, suggesting that issue is not always food availability, but rather food quality. This new paradigm has been called Type B malnutrition and looks at farming practices and issues with multiple micronutrient depletion in communities around the globe. This was from the United Nations Standing Committee on Nutrition. So Joe does a good job, Dr. Fraley does a good job of giving us information to say, hey, look, you've got to be able to address these objections that people are saying, because it goes back, right? It goes back to the first slide when it says that 8 chronic conditions have reached the highest prevalence in the report's history. So why would you get a chronic condition? Why would you get these conditions that are on the list? Arthritis, asthma, cancer, cardiovascular disease, chronic kidney disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD, depression, and diabetes. Why are we getting those things at a higher prevalence than we've ever gotten them in the history of mankind? Well, part of the reason is go back to fuel and activation, and go back to fuel and look at nutrition and toxicities. So what is it that we're eating? How are we eating it? Are we supplementing with anything that we need? Like with vitamin C. Vitamin C for us is Cyruta Plus. It's buckwheat juice powder, buckwheat powder. And you get a full complement of the whole synergy of vitamin C. There's your vitamin C. There's your Catalin right there. That's the multivitamin. That's a multivitamin. The standard process, those guys, I think they said it's a 900-acre farm. I've been saying it wrong, but it's a 900-acre farm. I saw the standard process guys last week. They were in the office. They invited us up there to that. And look, the reason that we make recommendations for supplements, the reason we have a nutrition department in the office is because we're trying to address that fuel and activation, and we're trying to address and make sure that you're getting the nutrients that you need and you're not getting the toxins in your body. And there's a whole bunch of toxins that we can go through that are one of them right here from the Journal of Pediatrics, volume 125, number 6, June 2010. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorders and urinary metabolites of organophosphate pesticides like Roundup, right? Conclusion. These findings support the hypothesis that organophosphate exposure at high levels common among U.S. children may contribute to ADHD prevalence. It's one of the things that may contribute to it right there. There are over 40 organophosphate pesticides in use in the United States. So when we go to the grocery store and we buy food that's not organic, then what we do is we get these organophosphates in our body. And they change the physiology of the way that we work. They change what's going on, the cell structure. They change the ATP production in the mitochondria. They change the cell wall dynamics. They change the bone marrow dynamics. They change the immune system response. They change the way that the immune system is getting into things. And we saw some pictures this weekend and of different immune responses and how what happens inside the blood when there's an immune response. And even if the person is on a really, really clean diet and that person is also taking large amounts of fish oil, we need to remember that the immune response is inflammation is the initial stage of the immune response. I think that's a drastic thing to really, I really think that is a key component of understanding health. Inflammation is the initial stage of the immune response. So you can take your fish oil and you can be eating a very clean diet and you can be eating no sugar, because this is what happened to me last year. Because when I went up there and got my blood checked with Dr. Fraley out, there was some of that was going on. We could see some of that inflammation, and I couldn't understand it. I was like, I don't understand why why am I dealing with inflammation when I haven't had any sugar? Saturday is going to be 2 years that I've been clean from sugar, and 3,000 to 9,000 milligrams of fish oil every day. So why last year did I have inflammation in my blood? Well, my immune system was fighting. So now it's like, what was my immune system fighting? What is it that my immune system was working so hard to deal with? And I really believe I was getting shedded upon from the vaccine. And there's science that's coming out now that's saying that that's a thing. Like my patients are going to get the shot, and then they're coming in and getting adjusted, and then they're shedding on me, and then my body is having to respond to that. That's my own theory. I don't have any scientific background in my own case. I can just say that I shouldn't have been having inflammation in my blood, and I had inflammation in my blood, And so where was it coming from? Well, I don't have any idea, but it must have been coming from somewhere in my environment. And that somewhere in my environment is the initial stage. If you want to go to every one of those chronic diseases and you want to study the initial stages of those chronic diseases, what you're going to find out is that inflammation is almost there every single time. When we have inflammation, we're building chronic disease inside of our body. And then after the seminar, Joe and I, we went and got supper, and we sat there and talked for about 2 hours, because it's one of the few times that we actually get to spend some time together. And the vastness of the vastness of the amount of work that needs to be done to help people live a healthier life is just incredible. I mean, there's just a lot of work that we have to do, and that's part of the reason we do the show, right? That's why we come on the show. That's why I have a show every night, to try to share this stuff with you. So when we go do a seminar, we're really not jacking around. Like, it's not something that we just go up there and have a little meeting and then go to the end of the mountain gods and gamble, or go play golf or something like that. It's really not what we do. So, hey, let's take a break. We're on the radio. Let's take a break. We'll be right back right after these messages with Life with Jason Clemmons, DC, and we'll just keep going with what we got going tonight. So we'll be back in just a few minutes. Yeah, so it's great conversations, but we really are working at it. We're really trying to help. We're trying to work on the things that it takes. Water with lemon and lime, by the way, is what's in this red Solo cup, just in case you were wondering, thinking if I was having a beer or something tonight. It's water with a lemon and with a little bit of lemon and a little bit of lime in it. So chronic diseases are started with inflammation, and chronic diseases are getting worse than they've ever gotten before. So it makes us really think about, hey, what are we doing, and what are we trying to accomplish? And we really hope that we can get things done. One of the things that was presented is that the way we respond to a chemical or drug or a supplement differs from each person. So it would be nice to have more technology and more things to be able to measure. And he always uses the example of, if he drinks a cup of coffee, his body responds a certain way. But if he was to give that same cup of coffee to his 5-year-old son, then his 5-year-old son would respond completely different. And that's a good point. And the point of that is, it's not the coffee. The coffee is the same chemical compound. It does, but when a grown person takes it versus when a kid takes it, they respond differently. And part of the reason they respond differently is because over time they become blocked or switched. Their nervous system has a block on how it responds to certain things, or there's a switch on the way that certain things happen. And that's one of the things that we look for when we're trying to increase someone's wellness. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemmons. It's Monday, February 26th, and we're breaking down some of the seminar stuff that we had this weekend up in Rio. So we'll get to, here in just a minute, we'll get to the overall stuff from the church. But one of the slides here says, nerve interference can prevent the central nervous system from functioning optimally. And that's the whole thing that we've started since the very first show that we've done. We've said it over and over again. The reason that you get adjusted is because you're subluxated, and subluxation is interference in the nervous system. And we're just diving deeper and deeper into it, trying to figure out how do you get interference in the nervous system? Where is the interference in the nervous system? And how do you solve that? And the fuel inactivation is a big thing. It's not just the adjustment. It's not just the adjustment. It has to be the adjustment, plus it has to be the nutrition and the exercise and the sleep and the spiritual life and the whole full component to it to really set yourself up to live an optimal life, right? So when I was talking about, for you guys on the radio, I was talking about the difference between if you give a grown person a cup of coffee, or you give a child a cup of coffee, you will get different responses from those kids, right? And if you have some people that say to you, coffee doesn't affect me anymore. I can drink coffee any time, and it doesn't really make any difference. It doesn't affect me anymore. It doesn't keep me up. I really don't respond to it. Well, what is happening now is your body is changing the threshold. It's becoming so adapted to that it's changing its threshold to which it will respond to that caffeine. And what can happen to us is we can get blocked or switched. And that just basically means that a block means a non-responsive. Non-responsive indicates that the body is not responsive to the stimuli. That's what it means to be blocked. So when we do a heart rate variability study and we ask a person to stand up, we expect their nervous system to respond in a certain way. When we ask them to do a Valsalva move where they actually put their thumb and they blow down really hard, and we ask them to see how they're going to respond to that, we expect their body to respond a certain way. And if it's not doing that, then the autonomic nervous system is not functioning properly, and we need to address that for them, right? So that's one thing that it means to be blocked. He says his interpretation: not enough activation to have the nervous system to reach threshold, and that's what he's talking about. The threshold changes. If I drink a cup of coffee, it kind of pushes it up. And then if I drink another cup of coffee, it kind of pushes it up. And if I drink coffee over a long period of time, it kind of pushes it up and pushes it up. Now it takes a greater amount or greater response in order to set me off with it. And we can do that with our medication. We can do that with our supplements. We can do that with different chemicals in our body, depending on how our nervous system is responding. So it becomes very important to understand how, if your parasympathetic or your sympathetic nervous system is actually firing the way that it's supposed to. Your parasympathetic is your rest and recover. Your sympathetic is your fight or flight response. And that's we have the different things in the testing that we do. Like a very simple one is just to check a person's oxygen level and heart rate, and really just check their heart rate from sitting down to standing up. Does it change more than 10 beats per minute if when your heart rate goes from sitting down to standing up? Does your blood pressure stay up, or does your blood pressure drop? And because you should be able to maintain your blood pressure when you stand up. But if your autonomic nervous system isn't working well, then when you stand up, you can start to lose blood pressure. Then that can make you lightheaded. It can make you forgetful. It can make you lose your ability to pay attention. You can change the way that you function. So think about that. Every single time that you stand up, you're not functioning properly. Like you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain because your heart rate drops or your blood pressure. And what I see a lot of people that come in on medications. And when they come in on medications, then it just pretty much blocks the way that their heart responds to things, especially if they're on a lot of like blood pressure medications. And we talked a lot about blood pressure this weekend and what blood pressure was and why blood pressure was. And Dr. Fraley did a great little analogy of that, a picture of that. And it'd be good to talk about tonight because we were talking about plaque, and he has an ultrasound machine in his office. So he does, he can do arteries and in right there in his office doing ultrasound. So let's say you have a blood vessel, and let's look at it. Let's look at it first like this. And so let's say that's your blood vessel, and then you've got a bunch of plaque that's built up inside that blood vessel. And so that plaquing is building up inside that blood vessel, right? Well, let's go back to our physics for a minute and our water hose, right? What happens whenever you decrease the volume? So you've got volume, the normal width of the blood vessel is this way, but now when you get the plaque built up in there, now you've got this much width of the blood vessel. So what's going to happen to the blood pressure? What's going to happen to the blood pressure when the volume changes? Right? So if you put your thumb on the end of the water hose, what's going to happen to the water hose pressure, to the water pressure from the water hose? The pressure is going to go up, right? If you're going to wash off your patio, you want to put your thumb on the end there to increase the pressure, so you'll have more pressure to wash the dirt off your patio, right? That you put your thumb over the end of the water hose. Now let's take this same blood vessel and let's do a cross section look of it. So now we cut it from the end, and now let's look at it on the end, and let's take this plaque build up that's going on, and let's put that plaque over here on this side, and it's built up along on the inside of your veins. And now let's measure that distance right there. So what have we done? We've decreased it from its total width all the way across, right? So what's going to happen to the pressure? The pressure is going to go up. In order to get the same amount of volume to your brain or to your tissues, you've got the same amount of volume flowing through the blood vessel. However much blood you got is flowing through your blood vessels, flowing through that artery. And then all of a sudden, that artery starts getting clogged. So what are we going to do if we're just talking about physics and we decrease the diameter of the blood vessel by having plaque in there? Then that's going to cause an increase in blood pressure. Well, in order to keep the same amount of volume, we'll have an increase in blood pressure in order to keep the same amount of volume. Well, we're going to go to the doctor, and then the doctor is going to say, your blood pressure's high. We need to get your blood pressure down. And I'm not arguing that. You don't need to have high blood pressure. But one of the things that Joe said is they took a blood pressure cuff into a gym, and they took the blood pressure of athletes while they were doing squats. So they put them on the squat rack, and then they had them do squats with heavy weights. And they said the blood pressure on some of those athletes was 400 over like 180 or 200 was the blood pressure while they were doing the squat. And Dr. Fraley's point of that is that having high blood pressure is not just going to stroke you out in a moment's time. That's not what happens. It's not freak out time when your blood pressure is 150 over 95. It's not time to freak out over that. You could go into the gym and go to 400 over 200 or whatever, and you're not going to stroke out. There's not a bunch of people stroking out from doing squats in the gym. It's just what your body requires when you're putting it under that amount of load. Now, no one's arguing that you ought to walk around with super high blood pressure, but I don't know that we've ever really think about what happens with blood pressure and volume. If I have plaquing and I decrease the pressure, if I decrease the blood pressure with some sort of drug, what did I do to the volume? I had to decrease the volume. There's no other choice. It's just physics. If I have a smaller diameter and I want to keep the blood pressure the same, I have to decrease the volume, right? Well, where's that volume of blood going? it's going to your brain and the rest of your system, right? So what we're doing is we're decreasing the volume to the brain. So what are we doing when that happens? We're decreasing the fuel delivery system. The fuel delivery system is getting decreased whenever we're driving these things down. And we're driving them down, and there's some evidence that says that this concept that we continually drive down our blood pressure is not necessarily serving us. It can make us it can make us sick. And I don't have the exact I don't have the exact slide pulled up. I know that I'm going to get to it here shortly when I'm talking about it. But um, that was one thing. One of the things, if you're on 3 blood pressure medications to get your blood pressure normalized, you have basically the same amount of chance. There's according to the study, and I'll find that study, but according to the study, there's no significant difference between being on 3 blood pressure medications and not being on 3 blood pressure medications. To keep you alive is not the overall mortality, or whatever the study was, is not any different if you're on those medications. So what would be important for us to know, how if we're taking this stuff, and if we're taking these medications, or we're taking these things for a symptom of high blood pressure, what is the reason that we have the high blood pressure in the first place? That's the question we ought to answer. We ought to answer what is causing our blood pressure to go up, and then create a plan for us to do that. And that's what wellness people do. That's what we talk about in between times. The texts that we have with each other, the phone calls that we have with each other, those are the things that we're talking about. We're not interested in well, and it's not a badge of honor. I've got a patient that's a badge of honor for her to tell me that she gives her kids ibuprofen. She tells it to me like it's a badge of honor, like she's like she made the decision to give the kids ibuprofen. And I go to seminars with the high-powered guys that study and that have been in the trenches of things, that talk about how ibuprofen can destroy your kidneys, and acetaminophen destroys your liver, and I mean, it's like it's not the way to go, right? It's not the way that we want things to go. We want to be able to control our stress. We want to be able to control our cortisol. We got really deep into cortisol and the stress response. Here's one article about how from Columbus, Ohio. Scientists investigating why wounds heal more slowly on patients who are stressed have found that psychological stress can increase levels of hormones in the blood. The analysis showed that women who had reported more stress before the experiment produced significantly lower levels of cytokines. Those same women showed a higher level of the hormone cortisol in their saliva. Cortisol plays an important role in curtailing the healing process. High cortisol levels can lead to slowing down of healing. So high cortisol levels, and what is cortisol? How does cortisol fire? We talked about that last week, right? Cortisol fires whenever you're under stress, and it fires from your adrenal glands. And you should Google this right here. You should Google this. Just go to Google, and I could do it right now. And what is cortisol made from? All you got to do is Google it. What is cortisol made from? Cortisol is synthesized from cholesterol. That's what we talked about last week in the diabetes talk. When we were talking about that, we were talking about lowering our cholesterol. And Dr. Fraley did a great job of explaining again what we've explained multiple times about how cholesterol, LDL is the shuttle that carries the cholesterol to the hole in the blood vessel. That's why your LDLs go up when you have lots of holes in your blood vessels. that's the damage to the blood vessel that makes you increase that cholesterol. And then the HDL is what shuttles it back to the liver so the liver doesn't have to make more cholesterol. So the LDL is going to shuttle it to the patch. It's a patch for a pothole. So your cholesterol is going to go up and your HDLs are going to go down because you don't need very many HDLs to get all that excess cholesterol back to the liver. But if you don't have any holes in your blood vessels, then you don't require very much LDL and you require lots of HDL because your HDL is trying to bring that cholesterol back to your liver. And so that's Chaley right there checking to see if we're still on for tomorrow night. So, and we are. So one of the things that happens with the statin drug is a statin drug blocks the cholesterol being made in the liver. So if you don't have any cholesterol, you don't have any patch. So if you have a hole in your blood vessel, then you don't need any LDL because you can't carry it. You don't have any patch, so there's no sense in carrying it out there. And then your HDL is going to go crazy trying to find any excess to come back. So you're going to get low LDLs and high HDLs. And what is that going to do for you? Nothing. It's going to do nothing but cause all kinds of other problems because you're not going to be able to make any cholesterol. And then when you're not making any cholesterol and you're stressed out. Now, how many of us handle those things together? I mean, quite honestly, how many of us out there, how many of us lower our cholesterol? We lower our cholesterol, but we don't do anything for our stress. We're still stressed out, which means we still have a high level of cortisol, and we have we've got our cholesterol under control with our statin drug. We've taken our statin. See, what the doctor in the room said is that the pharmaceutical industry plays the game to the test. They know if they create a drug, if they say, hey, low LDLs in a healthy person, low LDLs and high HDLs is what a person has in their blood. A healthy person has that. So what they do is they create a drug that gives that person that answer to that blood test. And then it looks like that person's healthy. But according to the report, we're sicker than we've ever been in the history of our time. We're not healthier. We're not healthier by taking those drugs. So where do we get cortisol? Google it, right? Google it. It'll say, what's cortisol made from? Cholesterol. Which cholesterol? The only cholesterol that's left. The decreased amount of cholesterol that we've driven down by taking our statin drugs. So we're driving it down, and now what's happening? We're having to steal it. We're having to steal the cholesterol because we're having to make the cortisol because we're still stressed out. And why are we stressed out? What's causing the stress? The lack of nutrients, the lack of nutrition, the increased amount of toxins, the abnormal right to left brain flow. Those are the things that give us our stress, right? So if we have subluxation, if we have interference in our nervous system, and our nervous system is not firing properly, then we will have an increased amount of cortisol because it's stressful. So we'll have an increased amount of cortisol, and if we're taking a statin drug, we're driving our cholesterol down. So we're stealing from the cholesterol. The cortisol is stealing the cholesterol that's there. Well, what else do you make cholesterol? What else do you make from cholesterol? CoQ10. What else do you make from cholesterol? Well, for your heart, there's your cardiovascular disease. What else do you make from cholesterol? Estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And your hormones are getting out of whack. So now all of a sudden our hormones are all out of whack because of this whole system that we're in. And now what are we going to do when your hormones are out of whack? You're going to go get some more medication, right? Just it's crazy. It's crazy. And then we're going to argue. We're going to argue for, and I hate it that it sounds like I'm preaching every night, because I'm really not trying to preach. I'm just trying to share it with you enough times that you hear it, that you really get it, that you start to understand that that is not health. And health goes from your brain first. It goes from your heart first with your spirit, I think, but it goes from your brain. You got to get your brain firing properly. In order to get your body healthy, you got to get the right nutrients to your body. And sometimes that's difficult. Leslie actually was very frustrated this weekend coming back when we were talking on the highway coming back, and she was very upset about not knowing exactly what to do. Like, do we eat carbs? Do we not eat carbs? Do we eat bread? Do we not eat bread? What is it what are we supposed to be doing? And it's a good question. It's a legitimate question. What are we trying to accomplish? What is our goal in life? What is our why? That's why it goes back to it every single time, because it's so easy just to get completely lost in all of this wellness stuff. What am I supposed to do? Well, I can tell you that you need to try to get fuel and activation. You need to try to get some nutrients into your body, and you may have to supplement. And your supplement bill may be expensive. You may be having to spend $200 or $300 a month on supplements. And it's like, that's insane. Well, it's not any more insane than the amount of money that I spend for this dadgum phone and this phone. And the people that have the phones, the Apple people, they don't have any problem whatsoever charging you $1,000 for a phone. And it's become such a normal thing that we don't even think about it. Like, it's not even, we just don't even blink. We just go get a new iPhone and we just pay $1,000 for a new iPhone. Just spread it out over the year, right? And they know that. Have you tried to buy a car lately? Have you tried to buy a pickup truck lately? Just go buy a pickup truck. See if you can find a pickup truck that's worth buying that's less than $70,000. Like, if you have to work and you need some sort of pickup truck, you're going to spend $70,000, $80,000, $100,000 on a pickup truck. You're going to try to buy an SUV for your family. Things are expensive. The things that you value, kind of like last week when we were talking about the Ozempic and someone was paying $550 a month for it. It's like, that's what is crazy, right? You might have to consider that you're not getting enough nutrients from your food, and the lack of nutrients is causing your body to go into a chronic state of disease, and that's causing your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous system to malfunction, and that's causing your body to break down, and that's moving you in the wrong direction. So how do you reverse it? You got to get fuel back. You got to get activation back. You got to get toxicity down and move yourself more towards a wellness phase. And that's kind of a summary, really, of what we did this weekend. I mean, it's inspiring to me. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining about any of it. And we try. It's just something that we do. When we get together, that's what we get together. That's the reason I go to Ruidoso and spend the time with Dr. Fraley. He spends hours trying to get these notebooks put together and all these 800 slides that he went over. He spends a lot of time working on that to try to get that, to share that information with as many of us docs as we can, so that we can come home and bring the information to you, so that we can make the world a healthier place. And that's really what the whole thing's about. So we didn't get to the taking health to church deal. There'll be just a few comments, and we'll bring those comments to you tomorrow night. We're out of time for tonight, but there's a few comments we'll add to that. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys get something from that, and we will be back tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with Life with Jason Clemmons. Hey, we'll be talking to Chaley Alsafar tomorrow, student at Parker College, future Rock Health and Wellness member. So you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.